Welcome to step 2 of Lightroom 5 Soup to Nuts. At this point we're going to assume that number 1, you've created your Adobe account, and number 2, you've downloaded the Adobe software. So this is going to be step 2A as we show you how to install Lightroom 5 on a Windows computer. And you can see the Windows computer here has my computer icon, has my recycle bin, and it has the installer package right here for Lightroom 5. So the process is going to be pretty straightforward for you. All you really need to do is double click the installer, and what it's going to do is ask you if you want to proceed with this installation. So go ahead and confirm that by clicking run. Then it's going to prompt you, where do you want to install this? So here's one of the considerations that you'll want to take into account. Some people like to install software on external drives to save room on their desktop. I would not recommend that. And as you can see here, this is installing straight to my C drive, and it's going to my user folder, C users JSON. Right here we're seeing desktop Adobe Photoshop Lightroom 5. So this is where it's going to install the files, right? Wrong. This is actually where it's going to extract the files that are needed to complete the installation of Lightroom 5. So when you've completed that download, what you've really downloaded is just a cab file. It's going to allow you to extract the rest of the files that you need from the Adobe website. So at this point I'm going to go ahead and click on next, and it's basically going to go out to the internet and it's going to grab all the files that it needs from Adobe, and it's going to put all of them onto my desktop. Once that has completed, and this one will take quite a while as it grabs everything else that's needed to complete the installation, we can actually go ahead and proceed with the installation itself, and you'll see what happens here in just a minute. So as we've finished the decompressing or the downloading of the additional files, or the extraction of the additional files, we're now going to proceed with the rest of the installation. As you can see here, it's prompting you whether or not you want to launch the Lightroom 5.2 installer or if you want to open the specified folder. And notice that when it prompts you if you want to open the specified folder, it shows you the path for it right here. So if we look on our desktop, I'll go ahead and drag that file folder into view. You can see that that folder exists right here inside this Adobe folder. If we double click on that, let me go ahead and bring that folder in here so you can see that as well. You can see here that we have the Lightroom 2 folder, and if we keep drilling down, you'll see inside Lightroom 2, here's the installer file right here. So this is everything that was extracted from that initial cab file download for Windows. So at this point, I don't really want to open the folder. It's okay if you want to open that folder. It's not going to hurt anything, but you don't have to open that. The other heads up I'll give you when proceeding with the installation is that once you're done with the installation, if you want to, you can go ahead and delete this folder that's been created on your desktop. Some people like to keep this folder as an archive or a backup if they ever need to reinstall a program. I personally do not. So I'll go ahead and just click on Finish, and this will proceed with the Lightroom 5 installation. So now at this point, it's going to prompt you for which language you want to use. I'll go ahead and leave it on English, and I'll click on OK. And this will extract all the installer files that are needed for Windows to complete the installation process. So at this point, one of the questions that often comes up that I get from readers and listeners is whether or not I need to take into account whether I have installed a previous version of Lightroom. So will this overwrite Lightroom 4, or will this overwrite Lightroom Creative Cloud, or whatever version you happen to be using? And the answer is no. It does a side-by-side installation. So if you're running Windows 7, or if you're running an Apple, I believe Snow Leopard is 10.5.2 or higher, 10.5.1 or higher, it will do a side-by-side installation so you can run the two in tandem with each other. That's one of the advantages of having a 64-bit operating system, is that you can do this sort of thing. So at this point, I'm just going to go ahead and click on Next to proceed with the installation. And you're going to get a prompt here on whether or not you want to agree to the software licensing terms. Now what this basically means is that you agree to their terms of use. You are not buying the software, you're buying a license to use the software. If you want to, you do not have to accept the terms of the license agreement. I would highly recommend you read through all the terminology in here. It is very important. I've read through this multiple times, so I'm very familiar with what they have to say. I'm going to go ahead and click on Accept, and that will allow me to proceed with the installation. I'll click on Next, and now it's going to ask me where I want to actually put the Lightroom 5 files on my operating system. By default, it's going to choose what it thinks is the best path for you, and it'll show you that here. So for Windows, that's C, Program Files, Adobe, Adobe Photoshop, Lightroom 5.2, and then all the files that pertain to 5.2 will stay inside that folder. And that's how you can have that side-by-side installation, because Adobe Photoshop Lightroom 4 will exist in the folder of its own destination. So if you want, you can change that, but if you do change that and put the files in the same folder as another instance of Lightroom, your executable files and all your DLL files for Windows could overwrite other similar files for another instance of Lightroom. So I would be very careful if you change the default location. If you are a more advanced user, feel free to change it if you like, but I'm going to go ahead and leave the defaults here, and I'm going to click on Next. At that point, all you need to do is just say OK, install, and it'll complete with the installation process here. This will take a few minutes depending on your processing capacity of your computer. It can take anywhere from 5 minutes to probably 10 or 20 minutes at most for the installation to complete. I'm not going to make you wait through this entire installation, so I'll come back once the installation is done, and then we can talk about what to do in setting up your new Instant 5. Thanks for tuning in.